Sequel number 34. Welcome, the Church of Uganda at 150 years, a celebration of our history. In this sequel, we are going to get interested in Kabaka Mwanga and his many wives. We are going to get interested in the arrival of another branch, completely different, but Roman Catholic missionaries. We then conclude with the arrival of teachers. Remember, Taka wanted to develop junior schools, a separation from the bush and graduating to junior schools. So a group of teachers arrive in Buganda. Let us begin. I'll begin with Kulabako. The Queen Mother Palace was at Impererwe. The Queen Mother was the mother of Kabaka Mwanga. Bagara Yazze was at Impererwe. Now, the Impererwe Palace was also at the same time the school for girls. Remember, schools at that time, chieftainesses. Boys grew up in chieftainesses, palaces. They grew knowing how to do things, and that was their basic education in those days, until the missionaries came and began these bush schools. However, that did not mean that they stopped habitations within the chieftainesses. In fact, it was easier for the education to be carried out through the chieftainesses. So even for girls, the chieftainesses were very good places for them growing up. So in the chieftainesses, or in the palace of the Namasole, or the Queen Mother, Bagara Yazze at Impererwe, was a girl. Now, the mother of this girl conceived her during a funeral vigil for her husband. And the eyewitnesses who saw what they saw ended up giving testimony later on that this girl was named Mukuru Abuzibwa, because there were questions about the paternity of this particular girl. She was born after her father's death, or the purported father's death, and it looks like the man who died was not the father. Now that's why the name Mukuru Abuzibwa. Now this beautiful girl had big eyes, and therefore she got her name Kulabako, Masombira, Sokwa. All these were her names. Of course, being born in a Christian era, Bagara Yazze ensured that she was baptized, so she was baptized the name Evelyn. At the age of 13, when she had fully grown up, she became a servant within the Bagara Yazze Palace at Impererwe. So by 1895, this Mukuru Abuzibwa, Kulabako, Masombira, Nsokwa had become 16 years. The Queen Mother, who had seen her grow up from a baby to a girl, found her very suitable for her son Mwanga II. And this now brings into doubt the missionaries' history or allegation that actually Mwanga was gay. In addition, the royal palace at this time also records another page called Eriya Kagiri, whose responsibility within the Mwanga Palace enclosure was to take care of the shifts of Kabaka Mwanga per night, like in which particular enclosure was the Muzana expected to be the next in line or the next in turn to attend to the Kabaka that night. So the person in charge of those shifts was Eriya Kagiri. Now, Eriya Kagiri is the known father of Nkoyoyo, the father to Livingstone Nkoyoyo. Now, this Eriya Kagiri disputes the fact that Mwanga was gay and gives the bueno of how he was in charge of the every night shift of which woman was to be with the Kabaka. So this continued to prove that the history of Mwanga being gay was a diversionary story by the missionaries for purposes of bringing a hatred to Mwanga for their own reasons. And so this woman, the young girl, was therefore recommended, or call it promotion, to the Mengo Palace, the palace of Sekabaka Mwanga. And indeed, she shifted. However, no sooner had she arrived in the palace did Mwanga II spot her. That's how beautiful she was. The striking beauty could not miss Kabaka Mwanga. And so, in November 1895, Evelyn Nsambya Kulabako got pregnant. And she got pregnant by Mwanga II. Now, this Evelyn had a brother, Eriya Kagiri, who got wind of the royal pregnancy. And therefore, for some reason, he applied and was able to be allowed in the palace as a favorite of the Kabaka. They used to call them the Sabaganzis of that time, because of the mere fact that her sister was pregnant by the Kabaka. So because of that, as Moko, he started enjoying some privileges there and then. And he was very, very jealous of his sister. He wanted to make sure that she's very well catered for the 9 months of her pregnancy. And so, in this particular sequel, I want to leave it at that. We now know there is a woman, a young girl, who has been impregnated by Kabaka Mwanga. We are in 1895. Okay? Fine. Now let me go to the arrival of another completely different group of Roman Catholic missionaries. This was also in 1895. Now, these were called the St. Joseph Missionary Society of Mill Hill. They were founded at a hill called Mill Hill, a suburb of London, in 1866 by the Reverend Father Bwana Mukuru Herbert Vaughan. Their mission was evangelism, or to evangelize Roman Catholicism to the English-speaking world. That is very important. And therefore, they sent out missionaries to foreign missions. Wherever Britain had conquered, they sent missionaries to evangelize the people in Roman Catholicism. Now, that's a very unique distinction, because the white fathers we saw arriving with Mapera were French-speaking. They came from Northern Africa, a very big center of Roman Catholicism at that time. So, that is the background. Now, this mission for Uganda, they had prepared as early as 1894, and they had begun preparing to come to Africa. They therefore arrived in 1895, and their leader was at the rank of a bishop, and he was Henry Hanlon. And he was to head a vicariate of Upper Nile. That's what they called it. And so Mwanga, excited as usual by anything that is Roman Catholics, he was very excited to see them, to see them arriving. And guess what he did? He gave up his own Camp David. I call it a resort. This Camp David Resort is an American name. It gives you the picture of what Nsambya was. It was a resort for Kabaka Mwanga. So Mwanga gave up the entire resort, which is almost the entire hill of Nsambya. He gave it away to the new arrivals, the Mill Hill Missionaries. And he therefore remained with Munyonyo, his now sea resort, and he also remained with Mengo, the palace, his own palace, because remember he had also given away his father's palace at Lubaga. Now this group, led by their bishop, arrived in Buganda in 1895, and they immediately demystified the myth that the British could not be Roman Catholics. because I think that is what Apollo Kagwa had been saying, that anything that comes from Britain must be Anglican, must be Anglican. So these arrival of these missionaries helped to show the world in Buganda that no. A Muganda can also, a British can also be a Roman Catholic. Britain was not only for Anglicans. Now, the Mill Hill missionaries were unique from the Rubaga White Fathers. They behaved in modern ways. For example, they weared suits. Unlike the humble white fathers, always in white shukas, or white garments for that matter. Now, these Mill Hill missionaries, they settled in very well at the Nsambya former Kabaka's resort. And they began to give their attention to the establishing of new bush schools based on Roman Catholic catechism. They also immediately began to plan for a catechists teachers college, and they were offered land at Namiryango to plan for such a college. And of course, they started looking for funds from Britain. Now, unfortunately, Mill Hill and White Fathers missionaries became rivals. Mark my words, not enemies, but rivals. And the issues are not going to be part of this sequel. Neither are they going to be part of this celebration, because we are not celebrating the Roman Catholic Church. We are celebrating the Church of Uganda. But I will leave it at that. Later on, we shall see how this rivalry even showed up when they were getting land in the Buganda agreement. We are going to see how the agreement made sure that each of the groups received their own, because they were different entities and they were rivals. Fine. I'll leave that now and move on to the arrival of the first teachers. Bishop Tucker was very, very, very much interested in the arrival of these teachers. He wanted to upgrade from bush schools to junior schools. So in August 1895, the teachers who arrived at Frere-town, having traveled around Cape Town. Now, this is very interesting. They did not pass through the Red Sea. They took the long journey through Cape Town, Mozambique, and then all the way to Mombasa. Now, Bishop Tucker joined them for his third pastoral journey to Buganda, because Bishop Tucker was at Frere-town, the headquarters. Even in 1895, the cathedral was still at Frere-town, near Mombasa. And they used the Kenyan corridor to come to Buganda. Now, passing through the east was no longer a problem, because now Mwanga knew who these were, and he was a little bit more powerless. Any order to kill could only come from the British, not from the Kabaka anymore. So he had no power. These people were free to use anywhere they wanted to come to Buganda. So they used the Kenyan corridor, and on their way at around Naivasha, they met Baskerville, the Reverend Baskerville, who was a missionary based in Ngogwe. They also met Pilkington at Naivasha. Pilkington had the manuscript for the first Bible in Luganda, the first full Bible from Genesis to Revelation, written in Luganda, translated by experts led by Pilkington, and we are taking the manuscript to England to have it printed. So they met them at Naivasha on their way to the coast, and they greeted each other, and then of course they parted company, and each group proceeded on their different course. Bishop Tucker and the teachers who were marching towards Uganda then reached Mumias on the 16th of September 1895. Remember King Mumia of the Abaluya, the one who buried the one who buried Hannington? Yes, so they reached here and they had a very good rest. Then they proceeded through Soga and were received at Ngogwe, where Baskerville was based. And this time they found a missionary called Blackledge. While there, Mika Sematimba, Buganda's permanent envoy to Zanzibar, arrived with a message of welcome from Mwanga II, and later proceeded slowly by slowly. The group proceeded village by village from Ngogwe towards Nkao or Mengo. They arrived there on the 4th of October 1895. But let me go back to Ngogwe. On their journey from Ngogwe to Nkao, coming village by village, they were met by very enthusiastic crowds. Crowds stand up to welcome them, to welcome the bishop, and the kind of welcome was very unique. Bishop Tucker had not seen this kind of welcome in Eastern Africa apart from Buganda here. Remember, this was his third pastoral visit. So nowhere in Eastern Equatoria had the bishop ever been welcomed so warmly. So when we tell you Ugandans that you are very good at welcoming people, please take it seriously. And it looks like it's in your genes, it's in your blood. We are in 1895 and the bishop is being so much overwhelmed by the kind of welcome he's receiving, him and the teachers, all the way from Ngogwe to Namirembe. And this started changing his mind. He developed a desire to change his headquarters from Fredericktown to Buganda. He wanted to live with these people who are so friendly. He wanted to see a church that grows and spread from a people who loved it entirely from their hearts. So from that moment on, he had work to do, including opening up new stations, so that then he could convince Canterbury that he could either transfer the headquarters, the cathedral, or the creation of a completely new diocese, as we shall see in future sequels. And so for today, may the good Lord bless us all as we end this sequel. My name is Christopher Amos Chikomeko Nsambya.